Hi, this is Shri again. Let's start with where we have left off in the last session. In the last session, we have seen how to copy the data using the data pipelines experience within Microsoft Fabric's data factory, wherein we used customized code to use couple of notebooks and some of the tasks involved in the data pipeline, such as REST calls and looking up into the metadata information in order to hydrate the fabric lakehouse. So today's session is about yet another way of doing the exact same thing, but this time using DataFlowGen2 um, data flows. So it is called Data Factory Gen2 Data Flow. Let me show you the on-prem data source, or I should call a simulated on-prem data source within the virtual network, um, where we have the bunch of tables again sticking to the AdventureWorks datas. Um, so we will be loading couple of tables from this schema and perform the transfer. Yeah. So in order to simulate an on-prem data source, um, I used a SQL server on which the AdventureWorks database is. As you can see, I gave public access only to the selected networks, in this case, only to my current IP address in my home. And that's the only thing that can connect to that from outside, from internet, like nothing else. So the only reason I did that is to show you the Azure Data Studio, so you can completely disable it like I am showing now. So no one, including myself, now I cannot connect from my local machine, right? So that also means you need to provide the private access to um, to this particular SQL Server service, which runs in Microsoft data centers, right? So you need to actually provide private access to this server uh, to reach the virtual network. So in order to do that, we create something called a private endpoint. So the private endpoint establishes a private link between the SQL server and the virtual network, wherein this private endpoint um, this private endpoint um, will resolve to a private IP address within that virtual network, right? In this case, my virtual network, it picked the IP address 10.0.0.5. So essentially, the SQL server does not have access to anything except at this point, um, to my virtual network. That's about it, right? So in that case, how do you reach uh, Microsoft Fabric to this SQL server that is within a virtual network, that and it has a private IP address? It is completely secure, right? So how do you do that? You actually do that with something called a data gateway. A data gateway is nothing but a software that you can install on a virtual machine. Um, so, for example, in my case, what I have done is I have installed a virtual machine, right? All about analytics organization, VM. So, this virtual machine um, has the software installed on that. So, um, again, this virtual machine is required for us to run a software, and that software corresponds to an application called Data Gateway. In the end, I will show for those who are interested in how the software looks like, but practically one of your admins will do this task, and as a data person, you don't need to worry about this. But what you do need to worry about is you need to go to the Fabric, which is nothing but our app.powerbi.com, and then go to settings on the top. So within settings, there is something called manage connections and gateways. Go to that. And within that, you need to go to on-premise data gateway. So if you see, right, the on-premise data gateway is running as a service on that virtual machine, and you have to register this the very first time, right? So you have to go to connections. Right now, I have already registered that, but very first time you need to say create a new connection, on-premise connection, and then if everything is set up correctly, here you need to you will be able to see your on-prem gateway, and you can give a connection name to that, which is exactly what I did. I gave the connection name as SQL Server on-prem, um, and that connection can be managed by today only one user, which is analytics at sriram.msft.com, but you can give access um, to other users in your organization. Let's see how to create a new connection to the on-prem data source. Go ahead and say new connection, choose on premises, gateway cluster name. We can call this connection as SQL Server on-prem demo. Connection type, search for SQL Server. This is our SQL Server name. Adventure works. This is small a. Authentication basic. Let me choose the Azure admin one, and I will type my password. That's fine. So we are saying the privacy level of this is organizational. That's okay. We have several different options. Of course, this is organizational. So just say create like that. Okay. So if we go and refresh the connections here, let's just do this. You see here, right? The SQL Server on-prem connection um, is right here. So yeah, exactly. So it is saved, and that's perfect. It is connected. Um, so that's how you need to actually create a connection. I already we have couple of connections. I already created um, one connection before, and this is the second connection. It's kind of redundant, but that's okay. So if we go here, app.fabric.microsoft.com, log in into my organization, go into the data factory experience, click on the Gen 2. First, don't forget to go to the workspace that has access to Fabric. In this case, it's Contoso Sales. And I'm going to filter on DataFlow Gen 2. So just for the demo purpose, I'll create a new DataFlow Gen 2. If you see the top left hand corner, this is where you can rename this. So we can say demo Gen 2 flow on-prem SQL to bronze. Let's enter, and that new name is saved. So we say import from SQL, give our SQL Server name, and when you go to Adventure Works, actually it should list, two. We have a redundant one. So that's fine. We'll choose whatever. We can choose one of those. It's not a big problem. Let's say next, right? So from a completely private network secured SQL server, you can now see all the tables. So for example, like let's say we go to sales. uh, we see a simple table here, sales currency, right? So you have something like this, and if you create, then you get actually, see, if you see here, this is the mashup, right? So this is the m, that is the m query. And then let's say you want to remove the modified date from this, press select, you remove columns, right? So the removed columns thing you can do. And once you're satisfied, let's say you want to load this simple table into the destination without any transformation, all you have to do is just go ahead and say add destination. There are currently four kinds of destinations supported: SQL database, lakehouse, data explorer, and a warehouse. So you can directly load into a warehouse, but you can also load into the lakehouse. um, Automatically we have access to the fabric, and it is this fabric. So we go to counter, so sales, lakehouse bronze, and you can actually name the table. For example, you can say some underscore demo table, let's say bronze, the demo table, demo one probably. Then let's say next, and now you see this, right? So you can see um, whether you want to append to the existing table or whether you want to replace the entire table. um, and it automatically detects the schema, but in this case, the schema is shown as a table, um, and that's fine. It mapped it to something like that. But what we can do is, even we can do better. So we can say go here and just choose, for example, uh, what are the different country attributes, right? You just can select these. For example, you can say I want just the currency code from that, right? So in this case, they're all nulls, so I did not populate all those. So let's go ahead and remove actually all these other tables. We'll do a simple save. um, we can say remove columns. We can say remove columns, remove columns. And now we can go to our destination, add destination, lakehouse, lakehouse, go to next. Then we can go to our bronze layer, which is part of counter. So sales, we can say, yeah, sales currency, let's say underscore demo 2, next. So it's a simple text mapping, save settings, and go ahead and publish this. And now you go filter on the DataFlowGen2, and this is the one we just now created. It is refreshing. So you have additional abilities here which I will show later to actually view the lineage, to do some settings here and all of that stuff. But there is this thing called refresh history. So when this one is refreshed, so let it run. This is one of the very simple pushes I have done. So for example, if you go to refresh history, so this is the first time the refresh is happening. So you can see how long it ran and what are all the different things that happened. So I would let it run. Okay. So now let's open the one that is already created with some logic. So load data from on-prem SQL Server, um, and I have created the second one. This is called sales customer by territory. Let's see this. Um, so here, I have loaded in the same way a couple of tables. One is sales customer, and another is sales territory. So the intention is, to join both of these tables in order to get sales customer by territory. So either you can look at this like this, or you go and, like say, I want to look in a diagrammatic view. You click this one below. You can see the diagrammatic view. You can see, what are the different steps involved in each of these. So in one of these steps, what we did is we actually joined the two tables. Um, we joined the two tables, um, right, using this merged query. Um, so as you can see, we performed a left outer join, right, of these two tables. Um, Again, these are very simple things, right, that are performed. If you go and see the settings, you will see the settings here. I join territory ID equal territory ID with the left outer join, and you can set up actually some fuzzy matching if you want to. um, and I formatted some of the records. I removed some of the columns that I don't need. So eventually, after doing all of those stuff, right, without writing the code, but just by using uh, all the click features, I actually got a table such as this that actually listed a customer, right, within each territory. So later, right, in the silver layer or in the gold layer, I can create some summaries out of this. For example, I can see what are the different counts, um, what are the different counts of customers who are doing sales from adventure works. What is the count by, let's say, territory? If someone asks you, you can generate all those metrics. But in order to do that, let's say you have to combine two of the tables and standardize them into something like this. So you can technically call this as a silver table because we have standardized a little bit. Or you can even put it in the bronze if you don't want to complicate the things. But that's a logic and that's a table. And as usual, as I showed you, if you go to the settings here in the destination for this particular thing, the destination setting is a table with the name sales customer by territory table. um, and I'm not saving anything at this point. So I published that just like how we have done the live demo one that I have done. And if you go into the contours of sales, you have to first close this. So close that out, and then we go to contours of sales. All right, so let's go to other screen. Let's go to workspace, contours of sales. What you can see is go ahead and filter based on Gen 2. You can see here our thing is demo Gen 2 flow on-prem to bronze. Um, so this is the one we ran earlier. If you see that one, you know, um, go to refresh history, click on when it was refreshed. And if you can see, right, you can click on this and it will show you what's the size of the data, how many number of rows are there in the table. And similarly on the target, which in this case is sales currency right to data destination, it actually saved about 10 kilobytes worth of data. So this is how you can monitor this. So the one I have run, sales customer by territory, you actually can see the refresh history, go to the history, and you can see there are a couple of tables, and our output table is this. And this is a little bit larger, right? So it has some data. So this table is a little bit larger. I also want to show you some additional features, such as you can perform scheduled refreshes. For example, for this one, I have set up a daily refresh in my time zone. Let's say every day it has to run by 9. You can also endorse this particular data set, to be a certified data set, if you choose to do so. So to conclude, this is actually a straightforward usage of Gen 2 data flows, wherein you can take any number of source tables you want, perform any logic, how much ever complicated that logic is. As you can see, we have done fairly, like a simple but very important transformation called join transformation. You can always do any complex activity involved in that. So for example, if we go back to our data flow, I just want to show you, right? So in the Power Query editor, um, you actually have, if you can see, um, the number of transformations you have in the Power Query editor, wherein you can actually perform various things, right? Various transformations, filtering rows, um, everything with just a click of a button, normalizing, denormalizing. If you go to even the transform, see how many things you can do in the transformation. For example, you can actually transpose, you can reverse, you can perform various different kinds of functions, including the statistical functions here. um, and the regular pivot and pivots you could do. And you can actually convert the data types, right, to standardize. That's why I told this is a perfect segue into the silver layer. If you want to actually do all of these things and standardize, right, group by for aggregation. You can actually add columns. You can compute, um, ranks, the advanced analytics features, for example, such as rank function you can do. You can actually create a custom column. uh, sky's the limit. So you could do all these things, and you can actually visualize, um, and you can also see the lineage of this thing. So this is very rich. So I will just show you one more thing before I conclude this topic. So for example, if you want to see, you can see the lineage of this one. You can actually see the lineage, um, right? So how did you derive the sales customer by territory? You're doing that by actually joining couple of tables from the SQL server, and you're using on-prem gateway, and you are storing the output into the lakehouse. And you are using a data flow to do that. And therefore, the two assets, namely the lakehouse and the on-prem SQL server, are related to that. And as you can see, the rich lineage that the tool is capturing, so that you just, there are no guesses here. You prescriptively know where from the data is coming, right? So you can always search it on the top, and zero down to the asset you want. With that, let's conclude this topic of how to load the data using data factories, DataFlowGen2 pipeline, um, and have this particular tool in your arsenal as part of data engineering. Um, and this concludes this session of loading the data um, into a lakehouse from your on-prem system using a data gateway and DataFlow Gen 2. And for now, I am signing off. Bye.